Greetings, dear companions. A fair day to you all. Glenn here, returning to your esteemed presence for episode 5. Today's episode evolves around historic Fredericksburg, Washington's boyhood home, and many other ties to Washington, such as home of the University of Mary Washington, named for the mother of George Washington. I hope to provide you a quick glimpse into the many sites to visit. Fredericksburg has an enormous amount of history, Civil War, and so forth, but today's episode will only focus on the Washington period. Should you find satisfaction in the content herein, I beseech thee to consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. Thus, without undue delay, let us commence. On the map, Fredericksburg is halfway between Richmond, Virginia and Washington, D.C. For those on the East Coast, not too far a travel. Those at a longer distance, still a great destination to visit, especially since there are so many other historic sites to see in Virginia. I'll provide a list of them at the end of this episode. Fredericksburg was named for Frederick, Prince of Wales, eldest son of King George II of Great Britain, and father of King George III. The city was established by an act of the Virginia Assembly in 1728. Your first stop must be the Visitor Center on Caroline Street. The good folks there are friendly and very helpful, and on my visits have told some very interesting stories. I would recommend purchasing a 1-day, 2-day, or more pass as a bundle package to these sites, much cheaper than paying individually at each site. Also on Caroline Street is many blocks of boutique shops, restaurants, and antique places. Here's just a few. I will say some of the antique and thrift shops visited had 2 and 3 floors inside the building with great nostalgic items and great finds. Now for the tour. I shall present unto thee a cursory glance of 6 or 7 locations, a mere scratch upon the surface of the wondrous sights to behold. My son Zach has accompanied me to aid in the capturing of photographs and footage, and for his gracious assistance, great thanks be unto him. He also has a YouTube channel himself around comic heroes and villains, of which he'll provide a link to later.
Look up Epic Zacko on YouTube, or EPICZACKO, to see more of my stuff.
Let us commence with the house of George in his boyhood days, known as Ferry Farm, situated upon the banks of the Rappahannock River at 268 Kings Highway. It was there that he did spend the greater part of his youth, from the tender age of 6 unto his early 20s. Born at Pope's Creek by the Potomac River until the age of 2, from there the family relocated to Little Hunting Creek, which in due time was renamed Mount Vernon, and then to Ferry Farm at age 6. He was at Ferry Farm from age 6 until his 20s. He did take up permanent residence at Mount Vernon, where he did remain until his final days. Hey folks, we're in Fredericksburg, Virginia today, and we are exploring George Washington's childhood home. It's not the original home, but through excavation, they were able to find the original foundation, and they have drawings of what it would have looked like. So this is as close as you can get to it. They're still doing excavating on the land, as you can see over here. There's another building that they were able to find that was on the property, and they're building it to replication. This is where George would have been out here playing. And there's even a story about him skipping a rock across the lake. And then over here, we'll just walk over to the house a little bit. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to take pictures or video inside the house, so we're just going to watch it from the outside. But if you get the chance to ever come visit, again, it's in Fredericksburg, and they do tours, and you can go inside and learn more about the house. They actually have the room set up to where the kids would sleep and that sort of thing. Now this is the back of the house. The front of the house we're not able to access. It faces the river, and people would actually come through down the river, and in some cases would stop and stay here as a guest. Our next stop, we have the home of George Washington's youngest brother, Charles, located at 1304 Caroline Street. In later times, this dwelling did transform into the Rising Sun Tavern, which today stands as a museum. Here, guests may tour an authentic tavern and learn of the ways in which the Rising Sun Tavern did entertain, serve, and provide lodging for travelers and town folk alike. A curious fact doth present itself. Charles did venture westward in the year 1780, where he established Charlestown. He did lay out the streets of Charlestown, bestowing names upon many in honor of his brothers and sisters, and one for his wife Mildred. Furthermore, he did generously donate 4 corner lots at the intersection of George and Washington streets for the erection of public offices for the town and county. Next, we have the Thomas Jefferson Religious Freedom Monument. Here in the town of Fredericksburg, on the 13th day of January in the year 1777, Jefferson, alongside George Mason, Edmund Pendleton, George Wythe, and Thomas Ludwell Lee, wrote the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom. This esteemed statute was subsequently enshrined within the United States Constitution as the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Next, we encounter the notable sites pertaining to Mary Washington. First is the University of Mary Washington, the details of which can be found on the accompanying website. Moreover, we have Mary Washington's home, a residence acquired by George Washington for his mother from Michael Robinson in Fredericksburg in the year 1772 for the sum of £275. Mary Ball Washington spent her final years in this white frame house situated at the intersection of Charles and Lewis Street, bearing the address 1200 Charles Street, Fredericksburg, Virginia. This dwelling stands in proximity to her daughter Betty Washington Lewis's residence, known as the Kenmore home. Mary's house serves as an 18th century period historic house museum today, overseen by Washington Heritage Museum, one among several museums in Fredericksburg. Within its walls, visitors may behold 18th century furniture and personal belongings of Mary Washington, including her cherished best dressing glass or mirror. Next, we find the gravesite and meditation rock dedicated to Mary Washington. Mary was known to meditate there many times during her lifetime. As has been reported recently, this past month, February 2024, efforts are underway to ascertain the precise location of her burial plot upon this hallowed ground. The exact whereabouts of Mary Washington remains shrouded in mystery. The Washington Heritage Museum has joined hands with the Department of Historic Preservation at the University of Mary Washington to employ ground penetration radar scans in pursuit of discovering Mary's true burial site. Experts concur that the remains do lie in the vicinity of the monument. However, the precise location remains elusive. This noble endeavor is spearheaded by Catherine Parker, an assistant professor and the director of the archaeology lab at the University of Mary Washington. She labors in close consort with the board of the Washington Heritage Museum under the leadership of board chair Chuck Fennell. Next, we have Chatham Manor. Chatham Manor is one of America's most beautiful and historic houses. Here's some footage of our visit. Here we are at another site along the way in Fredericksburg. We're at Chatham Manor. Hope you enjoy it. Built in the 18th century by William Fitzhugh, many notable people have visited Chatham in its 200-year history, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Robert E. Lee, Abraham Lincoln, Clara Barton, Walt Whitman, Washington Irving, and George Marshall. The house has a lovely formal garden, and its location on the bluffs overlooking the Rappahannock River, offers an outstanding view of the city of Fredericksburg. Visitors are also free to wander the grounds, in the gardens, and among the outbuildings at their leisure. The interiors of the buildings are not open to the public, so please view these structures from the outside only. Next, you can visit Hugh Mercer's apothecary, known today as a pharmacy. Mercer was a soldier and physician who fought for a Virginia regiment during the American Revolution. Born in Scotland, where he earned a medical degree at the University of Aberdeen, Mercer took up arms on behalf of the Stuart claim to the English throne. After the disastrous battle and loss, they started to behead those on the losing side. However, Mercer decided he liked his head and thus fled to America, establishing a medical practice in Philadelphia. He became the first commander of Fort Pitt in current-day Pittsburgh. By 1761, Mercer had quit the militia and moved to Fredericksburg, where he married, opened a pharmacy, and purchased land including Ferry Farm, the boyhood home of George Washington, whom Mercer had befriended during the war. While serving under Washington at the Battle of Princeton on January 3, 1777, Mercer suffered severe bayonet wounds after his horse was shot out from under him. He died 9 days later. You can still visit the pharmacy today in Fredericksburg, displaying colonial period medicines, treatment methods, and even live leeches. I posted a quick video of the leeches during my tour of the house, shown in my recommended video section here on the YouTube site. Okay, 2 more sites I'd like to highlight. First, the James Monroe Museum at 908 Charles Street. Monroe is our 5th president and known mostly for the Monroe Doctrine, a United States foreign policy position that opposes European colonialism in the Western Hemisphere. It holds that any intervention in the political affairs of the Americas by foreign powers is potentially hostile act against the United States. The doctrine was central to America's grand strategy. Now here's a few lesser known facts about Monroe. He was the 3rd president to die on the 4th of July. He was the only president to run unopposed, and he was the only president to serve 2 offices at the same time, as president and as Secretary of State in War. And the final site here is the historic Kenmore home of George's sister Betty Washington Lewis, wife of Colonel Fielding Lewis. This is one of the most breathtaking sights on the tour. The house is architecturally notable for the remarkable decorative plasterwork on the ceilings in many rooms on the 1st floor. Matt Webster, Kenmore's architectural historian, said that the Kenmore design, 2 stories, 8 rooms, about 4,700 square feet, plus a full cellar, an exterior of 317,000 bricks, is pristine. Webster said that the plaster designs on the 12-foot high ceilings combine Baroque and neoclassical architecture. Quote, he said, "There is nothing in the United States like these ceilings." Kenmore is owned and operated as a house museum by the George Washington Foundation. The foundation also owns Ferry Farm. There's much more to disclose about this house, history, and those who occupied this house over the centuries. But I'll not spoil it for you. You must come and visit this historic home when you can. Verily, we have reached the end of our succinct journey through Fredericksburg. As forestated, I recommend unto you other notable sites within the bounds of Virginia, worthy of your visitation. These cities bear witness to much historical importance. And the book here, presented before you, a gift to me from a cherished friend, serves as an excellent source and guide to many landmarks awaiting your discovery. Do share with me any intriguing tidbits or facts you have unearthed concerning Fredericksburg. Additionally, I would be most eager to learn of any visits you have taken yourself in Fredericksburg. Be advised, episodes 6 shall be unveiled in a few weeks' time. Until such moment, I bid thee a most fair and pleasant day.